Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Tom,
And I'm Darlene Rempel.
and it's Christmas. It's December 22nd. And darling, I'm just curious because, every once in a while we get a glitch. But I'm wondering why the live shows we've been on for more than 2 minutes and we just tuned in.
I have no idea.
Okay, we'll figure out about. Please grab your lunch. Please join us because today we have a special guest. And our theme for the month, we are still talking about how to cope with grief during the holidays. And before we started our show today, I was just sharing with Darlene that I feel very emotional. Um, and I might as well just share why I'm feeling so emotional today. One way to cope, and remember, Darlene and I, we teach you lessons from we've learned from loss, life and loss. So this Christmas, our family and friends and others, we decided to think about others instead of thinking about ourselves. And we started with our children, our kids, and we were looking who can we bless, who can we share our gifts during this Christmas. And without saying too much, it is the most powerful thing I've ever done. It changed my life. And why? Because for a minute, I had a pause in my own life to not think about me, me, me. And for a minute, I had to think about others. It wasn't a minute, it was an all day event. But you know what I'm saying? It just that shift of mindset where it's not about our Christmas and what we are doing and the gifts and stuff. How about others? And my heart was full. Friends, my challenge I'm giving you today, as we get closer to Christmas, just step out of you and think of somebody else. Give love to somebody else. It is so powerful. And I know we all do this. And especially if it's somebody who is not expecting, or someone who doesn't have as much, or that a place that is not very good at this time, just to show love and just show. It doesn't even have to be material. My heart was full.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That is so good. When we can take that moment to get out of our own selves, out of our own grief, and just think about someone else.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It was so good.
that's so good.
And also, we want to say thank you for everybody who joined us for Blue Christmas. That was also very touching. It was just I don't know, darling. What do you want to comment about that service?
Yeah, it was just a really good. It was a really good service, just about how we can have conflicting emotions, that we can have sorrow and grief, and joy at the same time, and how all. So even when sometimes we're feeling sad about a loss, we can also feel a joy when we remember our loved ones, and that it's okay to have both emotions at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you to Pastor Maggie for putting that on. It was just a beautiful time. And so we challenge you, our friends, invite your friends. Let's have lunch together because we have a very special guest. And today she'll be sharing her own personal stories and how she copes with grief during the holidays. And I don't want to even take more time because this is so, so, so good. We're just so thankful she's here with us. And I'll let Darlene introduce her. And
Yeah. So our special guest is Gabby, and she's been a gift in my life, and we just reconnected lately, which was a great gift again. She's a wife and mother of 2 grown children. She worked as an engineer for 20 years, currently is working from home as a consultant and taking courses in biofeedback and EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. So we're interested to hear about that. She has a belief in taking it one day at a time, and when there is a bad day, the next day is just around the corner. And we have a chance for a better day. So she's going to come on. Welcome, Gabby, if I can get the... Welcome, Gabby.
Hi there.
So good. So
Hi.
great to have you.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so how, yeah, we're just sharing about maybe what's one thing that you like to do at Christmas to help cope with grief or loss.
It changed over the years. I lost my mom in 2005 suddenly without any notice. She was here one day and gone the next.
Mhm.
So as the Christmases progress, my method of dealing with it has changed because as time passes, it does help with healing the wound
Mhm.
one step at a time, right? And working through the layers of grief as well. So the first Christmas, what we did, we set a plate for her at the table,
Mhm.
which was but in either way, it's a tough Christmas. It's the first, everything that's the first after you lose someone. It's like your
Mhm.
world just isn't a whole at that point, right?
Mhm.
So I found that very hard. The plate helped, but I also found that I was also still in denial at that time.
Mhm.
And so as the time progressed and I started dealing with it and I started learning more about my own emotions of grief,
Mhm.
and anger and all the thing that comes with grief, I actually take a time, around Christmas time to just sit down, maybe find a photo album, maybe just sit and reminiscent about the good times we had, the laughters we had
Mhm.
together. Sometimes there's some tears because
Mhm.
it's been what, 16 years now, and do I still miss her? Yes, I do. I mean, I spent over 30 years of my life with her, with my mother, right? So it's
Mhm.
but those are the main things. Like the main things I took away from it was, yeah, time. You need time. You need to give yourself time, and you need to allow yourself to feel.
Yeah.
And it definitely, the of giving to others is like a nice little break sometimes from your own grief too, because it takes the attention away from yourself and from your grief, which sometimes is needed just to have a little bit of a break, especially in the beginning stages of it,
Mhm.
just to give yourself permission to take a break and say, you know what, today I'm going to go. One of the techniques I used, because there was a lot of stores I went to with my mom, we went shopping together. She was my best friend. She was my, uh, yeah, basically my best friend. She held me up. She was there when I was down. And so I gave myself permission once in a while to just go to a place where I've never been with her and to make a new memory without her, not
Mhm.
to negate uh, her value to me, but just to give myself a break and just to take a deep breath. And so I could start afresh and with my daily life without her, in a
Mhm.
sense. Because I had to learn, one of the biggest things, and please interrupt me anytime I might be going on a tangent, is when I lost her, I didn't just lose her, I lost myself. I lost the person I was, that I was with her. I lost the person that depended on her support. And I didn't have that anymore. So I had to reestablish that support for myself, by leaning on others and by learning to lean more on myself in some instances and giving myself, a break and saying, you know what, you're doing good. You can do this. You can move on. And so, I mean, I spent a year of denial,
Yeah.
spend a year of taking care of everyone else than myself. Uh, just ended up with almost a nervous breakdown 2.5 years after she passed away because I hadn't dealt with a lot of the things,
Yeah.
which pushed me into finally dealing with it. And so I started using various techniques to do that as well, right? And one of them was the emotional freedom technique, which is tapping.
Mhm.
And you tap on certain points. And by doing so, it seems really odd. I come from an engineering background, and all of these things are kind of going, is this for real? Is this really working? But
Mhm.
it is amazing how, by just having the statement of, even though I'm grieving today and I miss her like crazy, and
Mhm.
saying, and I love and accept myself, and tapping on it with it, it is amazing how much of the grief you can let go, and the blame. Like one of my biggest issues with her passing was I wanted to call her the night before, and I decided not to. And there was a lot of guilt involved in me believing that if I had called her, I could have saved her.
Wow.
Hmm.
And through bioenergetics, actually, I went through counseling. I tried different things, and it helped a little bit, right?
Mhm.
But I did do bioenergetics things. And I guess I was also ready for it. You got to be ready for it too. You're going through it, and eventually you're ready to move on to the next step.
Mhm.
And it was, again, it had to do with pressure points, and just going into that guilt, actually feeling that guilt fully and completely, even though my head knew I had no reason to feel guilty, but
Hmm.
in my subconscious, I felt guilty. I felt I could have done more. I could have saved her, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And just by going into that and going into it and talking to God and realizing that there's nothing I could have done, it was her time, even so it doesn't, it didn't seem to be, it shouldn't have been, right? And there's a lot of conversations. For me, it was a lot of conversations with God. And one of the biggest ones I had with him, where I stood in the bedroom, pointed up at the ceiling, and I yelled at him. I said, "You know what? I hate you. I hate you for taking her from me." And it was interesting because I don't hear voices on a regular basis. I just want to make that point, right? But this calmness and this peace washed over me, and all of a sudden was like, "Okay, Gabby, you know what? Now we can move on. You finally admitted that you have these feelings. You finally gone into them. Now we can deal with them. Now we can let them go. And now we can go back and find our way back to love and acceptance and joy." So
Hmm.
I don't know.
No, that is so amazing. Thank you for sharing that story, and just the power of giving ourselves permission. I think all through your story, like giving yourself the permission to grieve, giving yourself the permission to feel those feelings, and giving yourself, yeah, permission to grieve and to work through things. That's amazing.
But see, that's the main thing is I denied myself, even, yelling at God.
Mhm.
I always, oh, I can't talk to God like that. Oh,
Mhm.
I can't tell him these things, right? Even so, he already knows it. He already
Mhm.
knew how I felt. And by me suppressing them, I was stopping my grieving process, and I was holding it instead of acknowledging it, feeling it, accepting it, and also accepting the fact that it didn't make me a bad person to necessarily feel these feelings,
Hmm.
Mhm.
because I did not act on them. I felt them, but I did not necessarily. There's a difference
Mhm.
between having certain emotional feelings and acting on them.
Yeah.
That
Hmm.
so
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any?
I love that. I love that, Sherry. I have to mention, I've heard about tapping, but I've never tried. Thank you
never tried
for
it.
mentioning. No, could you just give us a little dong dong dong,
Well,
a little quick
An
lesson?
explanation.
well, it's there's certain points. I mean, if you wanna, if is there something specific you would like to tap about? Is there something specific?
Oh, I see. Okay, so how it works? You have something specific, then you focus on that. Correct?
Correct. You have an intention and set.
Okay, interesting. So I was telling Darlene today, I'm so emotional. I just want to cry. Could we
Yeah,
do tapping on crying?
we can tap and cry. Tapping, crying. A lot of crying, a lot of emotional release is done with
Mhm.
crying.
Yeah.
Okay, emotional
There's
release.
nothing wrong with crying, right?
Yeah.
So, I
Okay.
mean, I'll just show you quickly. You
Yes.
first start out by tapping on the side of your hand, and that's the setup statement. And we do that 3 times. And then we start tapping on the inside, right on the ridge of on your eyebrow. You start tapping there. And then we go to the side of the eye, under the nose, under the mouth, right here by your collarbone,
Mm.
and just right where your brow line is on the side. And then we go back to the top of the head. And I will tell you every time when you need to switch it.
Oh.
So let's go see.
Let's go.
Let's go. What is our setup statement going to be? Let's go with uh, even though, if you want to start tapping,
Yeah.
even though I feel a little sad today and I feel like crying today, and I feel a little sad, I still love and accept myself. Even though I feel a little sad today and I feel like crying today, and it's all right to cry, I still love and accept myself. Even though I feel like crying today and I feel sad today and I feel slightly upset today, and yet happy even in the same instance, I still love and accept myself. And then we go and start tapping up here. I love myself and I accept myself. Go to the side of the eye. There's nothing wrong with crying. Just on the side here by your temple. There's nothing wrong with crying. Crying underneath your eye. Crying is a natural way of releasing emotions.
Mm.
Crying helps us under the nose, helps us to process our feelings. Underneath the lip, we don't have to keep a stiff upper lip when you feel like crying. It is okay to cry. On your collarbone, sometimes it's the best thing to do to cry, to let go of your emotions through your crying and acknowledging the fact that you're a human being who has emotions. It is okay to cry. On top of your head, it is okay to cry. On the eyebrow, we'll do one more round. It is okay to cry. It is okay to feel upset and happy at the same time. Side of your eye. It is okay to cry. Everything is okay. Tears are healthy for you.
Mm.
When the need arises underneath your eyes, when the need arises, it is okay to cry. We're all human beings, and God gave us tears for a reason.
Mm.
Underneath the eyes, sometimes we cry when we're happy. Sometimes we cry when we're sad. Tears can be used for so many things. Underneath your lip, it is okay to cry. Crying is good for us sometimes. And we know when the time is right. Collarbone, it is okay to cry. It is okay. It is okay to cry when I'm happy. It is okay to cry when I'm sad. On the side of crying is a perfectly natural thing to do. And on top of your head, I love and accept myself when I cry and when I don't cry. Everything is good. God gave me tears for a reason. Take a deep breath in and out. And this was more in a sense of getting the stigma away from that tears are not right, that we always have to have a stronger upper lip. But why did God give us tears? It's not just for when we get something in our eye. It's something, it helps to release things. It helps to let go of things, right? It's actually a very good detox for you as well. So that's tapping.
She feels like crying.
I love it. You say thank you so much for taking, like, seriously, sometimes we don't know. I'm sure I surprised Darlene by that, but I've always heard about tapping. I'm like, how do they do it? And there was something as we were doing it and the affirmations that you're saying. I'm like, yes, it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. And that way we don't, and that's what we share most times, suppressing our emotions.
Correct.
And thank you. That is, we are adding that on our things to help us cope with grief during the holidays. Thank you. Thank you. That's powerful.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
It feels like we can learn so much from Gabrielle.
Yeah.
What else should we do?
What else is the nugget you have for us?
What else? Because that was so good.
Well, there's a few other things when I have a day when I beat myself up about something or when I think I've done something wrong. I sometimes, I do it all in my head, right? And I take a deep breath and I say to myself, or if I forgive myself, I choose to forgive myself. And then I go to God and I go, God, I accept your forgiveness. And I choose to accept your forgiveness. And I also forgive whoever I believe have wronged me, and I ask you to bless them and watch over them.
Mhm.
You know, and in a sense, it's just acknowledging that, or if I've done something wrong, I go, I choose to forgive myself. God, I accept your forgiveness. And I ask you to, you know, to help me right the wrong I've done for this individual that I believe I've done. Because half the time when you have a conversation with the individual, they go, "You did? No idea I have."
Yeah, but it still impacts us because we think it's right. Yeah,
Exactly, yes.
yeah,
And it's powerful when you actually say to yourself, I choose to forgive myself, and I accept I accept the forgiveness, and I accept God's forgiveness. Because I mean, who is going to forgive us first in our life, right? It's probably not going to be us, but I mean, God is there, right? He's going to forgive us in an instant, especially when he knows it's coming from the heart, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, thank you for sharing your heart and just, yeah. And it's so true when we talk about just acknowledging, apologizing, acknowledging forgiveness, but also to receive it, because sometimes it's easy for us to say, yes, I forgive somebody, but to actually receive it ourselves is, and to forgive ourselves, right? To let go of
right.
that. That can be one of the hardest things. At least I know for myself, right? To
Oh no,
give
I
myself. And yeah.
agree with you 100% on there, believe me.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
and laughter.
yeah.
You know what? When you have a really tough day, find a good movie. That's a funny movie,
Mhm.
Mm.
you know, and watch it. And it's amazing what laughter can do, even with grief.
Mm.
It
Mhm.
can lead you through grief. It can help you,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I find I've gotten through more things with laughter
Mhm.
than a lot of other things. It just because it raises your energy, it raises your being in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
guess that's better. I go for the crying movies because if I can't cry, if I watch a sad movie or something that's related and touches me,
Yeah,
I've been then I cry and then it releases emotion, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's you know that polar opposite, but both very valuable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I do watch some funny stuff too, but
Yeah. No, so, yeah. No, if you need to cry, you need to cry. I agree with you
uh-huh.
100%. But let's say you
Mhm.
just have a rough day.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's
It's good to
sometimes a
laugh.
good laugh gets you to finish the day.
Mhm.
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 And sometimes a good cry does too as well, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and just I think we've been talking about being honest with our emotions. One thing we do in our grief course is just about total honesty, and that we often just it's kind of like denial. We just often aren't honest about what we're feeling. And so when again we can be honest, just like your story about God, right? When we can actually be honest
Yeah.
with how we're feeling, then we can deal with it, right? Instead of I know I'm very good at saying I'm fine, or that belief that you just say I'm okay and you stuff everything down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it, and that's why the first year and a half after my mom passed away, I was in denial, and but I said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm dealing. you know, it's just you go from A to B."
Yeah.
Well, grief doesn't go from A to B. Grief goes from A to Z to X to B to A again to,
Mhm.
you know, it goes all over the place. And so, I mean, for me, it took to almost have a nervous breakdown to finally start listening to myself and to try different things and to get out of the denial stage, saying, you know, everything's fine, going, no, it's not. It's
Mhm.
just not. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you found the tools after, right?
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, so my mom passed away in August, and one thing I noticed, this is probably the first time I've grieved in the present and actually used those tools right away instead of pushing everything down. And yeah, and I think it's a lot healthier. Um, Even though I'm upset, and my husband's like, "Why are you upset?" and all that, worried because I'm actually upset. But it's probably the first time I'm usually honest and I grieve in front of people.
Right.
So he was like, "How come you're grumpy?" It's like, I'm sad. He's like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Nothing." let me be let me be sad for a bit. But often we hide, and I know
Yes.
I'm great at hiding my emotions. And So learning to be honest and working through emotions right away is much more healthier.
See, and that's one of the things is especially if an emotion comes back
Mm-hmm.
and keeps on coming back, and sometimes a little bit of tapping
Mm-hmm.
helps with
Okay.
just helping to lead it along the way a little bit more. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't alleviate your grieving, never, because you need to do that. You need
Mm-hmm.
to feel your emotions, right? But I found sometimes I get stuck on something, and for some reason, I just can't process it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I use these little tools to help me to.
Yeah.
But definitely, I resonate with what you're saying. It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
tapping, again, with some of the trauma work I've done too, again, the way I understood it, or it was explained to me, that the tapping actually helps your mind process and put things from your emotions, your front memory into long-term memory. So it actually works through your thing. So yeah, it's
Correct.
really interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, you want to bring your emotions from your subconscious to a conscious level so you can deal with them.
Yeah.
As long as they're on a subconscious level, you don't really know
Yeah.
what it is. It's just something that keeps on, I'm grumpy today. I
Mm-hmm.
just, and it's a step of going, something in my subconscious is causing this,
Yeah.
and now I can work on bringing it up to a conscious,
Yeah.
and now I can process and learn.
Yeah. And then yeah, that's so good.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this. For those who have joined us today, please give us a thumbs up. Give us ask the questions, because I have so many questions. I'm even scared to ask Gabrielle these questions, because we all know, um, we, like, you're intending to be honest and truthful with your emotions. But most times you feel like you don't want to offend the people around you, or you don't want to show your emotions because we have all these other reasons why we cannot be ourselves. So we are afraid to even tap on our subconscious. I'm talking to me. so I so like just is there any way you could just tell us how to do that? Because I'm like, oh, if I told you what's on my no, that's on my subconscious, I don't want it out, but I know I need to be honest for me to heal. And for our listeners out there, when we talk about grief, it's just not loss of a loved one, but loss, any loss, we have a normal reaction, and that's what grief is, right? So yeah, Gabrielle, please help us out. Tell us what to do.
Oh my. I feel the pressure now.
Yeah.
You know what? I think the biggest thing is to get over the fear. The
Mm,
fear of that I'm a bad person because I feel a
mm,
certain way. The
mm,
fear of people will love me less because I feel I have these bad emotions or these bad feelings that we consider bad. But our emotions are there for a reason. They're bringing something to the surface that we need to deal with.
mm,
Um, let's say, for example, I don't like a person. I don't. There might be a reason. There might be personality. There might be something that causes this inner feeling inside of me that I do not like this person, right?
mhm,
But the fact still remains is that doesn't mean I have to act on it.
mm.
That doesn't mean that makes me a bad person, right? It just kind of I reflect on the inside, then I go more internally and I meditate on it, and I go, what is it? Is it maybe something that I am reflecting on this individual that's actually one of my own issues? And I don't like it because it brings it to the surface now. And now I'm going to have to, it's staring me right in the face. It's really hard not to acknowledge that. A lot of
Yeah.
the time your feelings has nothing to do with the person or the individual, but
Mm,
it's just something inside that. And by going, okay, you know what? I acknowledge that emotion
mm,
and I meditate on it, and I give it, and then sometimes some of these emotions I give to God hundreds of times, and I say, God, I give you this emotion, right? And I ask for your guidance to lead me through it and to help me understand as to why I feel this way. But as soon as you take the fear out of it and the self blame and the self condemnation out of it, you
mhm,
take the power away from that emotion, and the emotion dissolves. it kind of evaporates almost in a sense, because the emotion only has power because you give it power through your suppressing it, through your making yourself feel like I'm a bad person for feeling this emotion.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, so good. Like I'm writing down notes, and I know we have a recording and our friends can listen on podcast later. That's the good news. But yes, that makes so much sense. I love what you say. You give the power, you take the power away by
Yeah.
acknowledging it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mic drop. Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Tell us more.
How to
I
find
love
out
this.
more?
Sorry.
Find out more. How much of what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a website, or how do we find out more about you? And
Yeah.
I do have sort of a website that I'm kind of fiddling with and working with. It's called panoramaholistic.com. I'm trying to get it a little bit more personalized. It's a very neutral, very just fact-based kind of, this is what I offer.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to get more into it. I'm thinking about maybe eventually starting a little bit of a blog in it as well, right?
Mhm.
And things like that. But that's how you can get in touch with me,
Mhm.
through that
Yeah.
website.
Nice. Tell us more about Panorama. I'm trying
Panorama.
Panorama.
Holistic.
Holistic.
It was, I think I started it maybe 8 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that. And I ran the business from home for a couple of years. And it was, I had studied the emotions code and bioenergetics and health kinesiology. Back then it was called, now it's called bioenergetics. And the thing, and so I started having clients that came over, and I used the emotion code to bring up subconscious emotions and to help them deal with it and release them. And I did it for about 2 years, but the one thing that came out of it was I was taking on too much of other people's emotions and issues, and that kind of wore me down, right? So that was another one of my learning experiences too, where I learned that it is not my responsibility to take on other people's issues and life and their life path, because by doing so, I'm taking away from their journey and from their experiences, because they are having these experiences that I am more than willing to help them facilitate, to find a way through. But it is not up to me to fix it and to change it. It's to give them the power to change and fix the, not necessarily, I wouldn't even say fix it. It sounds like as if you're broken. We're not broken. We're on a journey. We're on a
Yes.
journey of discovery. We're on a journey of realizing that even the things you might call negative about us in certain situations, they're actually a positive.
Yeah.
You know, I can go off. If you push me too far, sometimes I can go off a bit, which of
Love it.
course you don't want to do, and I've learned to balance it out as well. But then there are certain situations where it comes to the point where you need to stand up. Doesn't mean you have to be mean or rude or crude, but you have to stand up and you have to speak your truth in a sense and say, and that's really not a negative. That's a power God gave me, right? He made me this way. So by saying I'm a bad person, and this really, I don't think God can make anything bad, right?
Yeah.
We only make things bad through our own actions.
Yeah, those are the like our negative belief system about ourselves.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you separate? So you made an important point about taking on someone else's emotions and taking on someone else's journey, and I think that's really typical of caregivers. Going into social work, and I've worked in crisis right for 20 years, and it's very easy to take that. When you hear somebody's story, you just want to fix them, you just want to help them,
Yes.
and yet that's not always helpful, and it hurts us too. Like we can take on too much. So, any advice for that, or how did you do that transition where you?
I have a lot of compassion and empathy for individuals. I don't say I ever know exactly what they feel. Of course, I haven't lived their lives. I can't do that, right? But when that empathy starts working, like you said, the inner caregiver comes in. I just want to take them, hug them, protect them, and keep them safe from it ever happening again. But yet they don't learn anything from it, right? If I do that. So one of the biggest thing is I always take a deep breath, and as I'm breathing it out, I'm letting go of whatever I've accepted or acted, made my responsibility. And I also do God, and I also have a little thing where I go, God, I release all of these emotions and all of these problems I've taken on from others. I give them to you to do with as you see fit. I ask you to forgive me for taking them on, in a sense, because there's a little bit of, I shouldn't take them on because they need to learn from it. And by doing that, I'm doing a disservice. So I say, I ask you to forgive me. Same thing as before. I choose to forgive myself, and I accept your forgiveness. And I ask you to bless them and lead them through this path that they're taking right now.
Yeah.
So, but it is mainly just taking a deep breath. It's amazing, and then, and literally sometimes doing the sound with it, It's amazing what.
How it changes, right? It
Yes.
changes our emotions. Yeah.
I love it. I just love it. I feel like we can have a visit for more than an hour because, Gabrielle, you are full of wisdom, and please teach us because you can tell, like everything you've told us already. I feel so thankful right now that you said we are not broken. Right, and we can let go, and the mind and life events make us feel like we are broken. And
Yes.
thank you today for the reminder that we are not broken. And I truly am looking forward to having you into our grief talk again. And I just feel there's something, I don't know, maybe because I learned how to tap today. But it's only that we have this lunch hour grief talk, but would love to have a longer podcast with you because your wisdom is so amazing. And I know some of our friends who've been tuning in, their lives will be changed because of this.
Yes.
Darling, right?
Yes.
Do you have something to add?
No, just thank you so much for sharing and sharing your wisdom and knowledge and just your hearts, right? We share, everybody has our own unique grief, and you're right, we don't know how other people feel, but when we can just listen and when we have the courage to share our story. Thank you so much for sharing about your mom.
Yes.
Because when we share, we give other people the courage to share, and when we can express our emotions, we give other people that permission. So thank you, yes, for sharing your heart with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. This was awesome. Thank you for sharing as well. It was great.
Yeah. This is just the beginning. 2022 is coming. So
It is.
before we
Say goodbye.
say goodbye, I cannot believe it's Christmas. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. May all your homes be full of laughter, love, and most important, let's build those relationships where we can be ourselves and just love each other. And I could have a script about it, but that's all. I'm just saying, let's share the love. It's make Christmas, and it's wonderful to see this year. We don't take it for granted.
Yes.
Right.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
And
Christmas.
we'll see you next
Merry
year.
Christmas.
See you next year. I'll miss you all. Mwah.